In this episode of the Range Minded Podcast, we witness a massacre. That's right. Our man, Thomas Massie, gets a little excited in his duties as a rep. He takes on Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Stephen Dettelbach of the ATF. Also, we listen in on how Hunter's case is going just a little bit. I don't want to visit that too much. It's boring. And then we, like I said, Stephen Dettelbach was in front of the House Judiciary Committee, so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. I hope you enjoy this episode 244 already. Yep, episode 244 of the Range Minded Podcast. Enjoy. All right, welcome back to the Range Minded Podcast. I am so happy to have you guys here. Can you believe it's episode 244 already? Man, time flies when you don't pay attention to it. So anyway, like I said in the intro, in this episode, there's a lot of stuff going on that are relevant to your rights. And this first thing we're going to talk about is a big deal, especially if you are a veteran. And that if you're planning on changing your disability status, you might be in for a little bit more than you had bargained for. This is a big deal. Check out this interaction between Thomas Massie and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is so amazing. Yes, that was sarcasming. Check this out. This is nuts. You're gonna listen to the whole thing. I'm not gonna talk during this. You have to hear this entire interaction.
I know there are a lot of riders here. There's one I'm somewhat familiar with, and I heard you, Ms. Wasserman Schultz, discuss it in your opening testimony, and that's on the NICS background check system. Can you explain to me what your aversion is to that rider, what your concern is?
Yeah, when you have a
I
veteran
love
who's been
her.
referred to a fiduciary to take over their finances, that means that they are actually prohibited by federal law from buying or possessing a gun. And this bill carves out an exception and prevents the VA from referring a veteran who would otherwise not be able, under federal law, to purchase or possess a gun to continue to do so. And that's dangerous to the veteran. We already have a really serious suicide problem, and almost always when a veteran commits suicide, it is because they have a gun. And this bill endangers
Okay,
the lives
hold on. Did you catch what she just said there? Yeah, I know we're talking about where she's bringing up the fiduciary thing if they forfeit the use of their or if they feel like they're ineligible to manage their finances, then they're mentally deficient and can't possess a gun, if that's what I'm understanding here. But did you hear what she just said? That the gun is causing the suicides. I take umbrage to that. Let's carry on.
and of their loved ones.
So I have actually talked to veterans who've been affected by this rule. It's not a federal law, and so I find it appropriate that we just talked about the power of Congress to appropriate. Now let's talk about the power of Congress to make law, because Congress never made a law that said if you have a fiduciary for your finances, that you now can't own a gun. That's something the liberals over at the VA created during Obama, and it's been going on a long time. I've had whistleblowers call me about this who work in the VA. They actually do these interviews. They talk to the veterans, and typically what happens is a veteran may be 25 or 50% disabled, and they apply for 90% or 100% disability, and they go through an interview. And in that interview, if they make the mistake, when they're asked the question, do you manage your own finances? If they're thinking, well, my wife has the checkbook, if it's a man, and they say that box gets checked, that they do not manage their own finances. That should not be an adjudication of whether somebody should give up their Second Amendment. In fact, not only is that person now added to the Brady list.
Wow, there
can't be a
crazy.
gun in the household. Not only can they not buy a gun, they can't have a gun in the household. So now the spouse is deprived of protection. We're talking about somebody who's 90% disabled, a veteran who was willing to risk their life for this country, And now because somebody in an interview checked a box because they said their wife has the checkbook, now they can't own a gun? This is not due process. And I know this for a fact. I've
So
talked
because
to
they let their spouse
multiple people that
balance
work
the
at
checkbook,
VA who've gone through these interviews.
she counts
I've
as a,
talked to
or
veterans,
the
I've
spouse
talked to
counts as the
veterans' wives
fiduciary?
who've been through this. And
How
you
does that
say
work?
there's a process. I see the president's statement on this bill says, oh, there's a process to go through. No, it involves years. It involves lawyers, which most of these folks, if you're applying for disability and you're a veteran on a fixed income, you don't have $20,000 to go pay a lawyer to try to get your rights back because
You guys hearing this?
accidentally, because you were truthful. It wasn't an accident. You just didn't know that telling the person giving you the interview that your wife has the checkbook would put you on the Brady list. Now, here's the other reason they don't appeal it. They get that letter that says you've been added to the Brady list at the same
When he says
time they
Brady
get their
list, he
approval
means
for their disability.
Disqualified
The
in any of the
implication-
questions in the
It comes the
4473.
same day. The implication is if you contest this, you may lose your disability benefit. You were willing to put your life on the line for this country, and now some bureaucrat adjudicated you to not manage your own finances, and then some rule, not a federal law, some rule that the VA came up with says that if you don't manage your own checkbook, now you can't own a gun. It's ridiculous. One of these whistleblowers told me he went
Any
to
of my
the
vet
person's
friends out there,
house,
have you
and
experienced
the guy's
this? Have you ever
literally
heard of
trading
this?
stocks on his computer. Like, he's not mentally defective. He just admitted that he doesn't have the checkbook. And so this is something that we did. I think we did a CRA on this, but the obviously the president was a Democrat at the time, wasn't going to sign it. And also when Trump became president, the clock had run out on this, so you couldn't do a Congressional Review Act on this. And it is long past time to quit taking guns from disabled veterans merely because their wife, or if it's a female, their husband, has the checkbook.
Ms. Massie?
Yes, Ms. Wasserman Schultz. I want to ask you a question first.
Sure.
Do you think that's a fair way to adjudicate this? Do you think if somebody doesn't manage their own finances, they should automatically, without a judge, be put on a list to say they can't have a firearm?
I think you're mischaracterizing the process first and foremost, because it's not just, oh, my husband manages our finances, but he is not my.
Don't tell the VA that.
No. I'm happy to tell the VA that because
They'll take your guns.
because he's not appointed as my fiduciary. This is a formal adjudication in which a veteran has a fiduciary appointed to manage their finances. That is not a bureaucrat, as you described them, sitting down with a veteran and reviewing, oh, does your wife manage your finances? And they check a box and then suddenly their guns are taken away. That is not how the process works. You have to have a formal adjudication. And beyond that,
Is a judge involved?
I'm not familiar with the
A
process.
judge is not involved.
Okay. I'm not 100% sure how a fiduciary
Don't worry,
is established. I believe it's a judge, but it is
She's a
not
representative to
the
somebody.
way you are describing, where they sit down and have an interview and their wife manages their finances and they lose their guns. In addition to that,
Well, but just maybe let me
there's
interrupt, and
also
then I'll give you more
lengthy
time.
appeals process that allows them, before their guns are taken away from them, they are able to appeal.
You're correct. You did say it's a lengthy appeals process. It's so lengthy it may never end, and it's
lengthy in the
expensive.
sense that it is a rigorous one that makes it hard for the final decision to be that the veteran loses their guns.
I think it's ironic we use the word adjudicate when there's no judge involved. And,
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
administration tried to do the same thing with Social Security. If you had a representative payee, if your Social Security check went to somebody else, they tried to promulgate a rule that said everybody on Social Security that has a representative payee is now going to be thrown into the next background check system. Not only does that mean you can't buy a gun when you go fill out your Form 4473 and they run the check on you, it means you are a felon when you sit at home with the guns you already own, or if your spouse has a gun that you can get access to when they're not home, then you're a felon. They tried to do this the thing they're doing at the VA.
This doesn't make them a felon.
They tried to do. Oh, really? If you're on the prohibited list, the Brady list.
That's if you have a fiduciary appointed for you, that does not make you a felon.
Really?
Yes, really.
What about when you get
Meaning that somebody is responsible for managing your finances.
Well, I think you're about to learn something
We have a
here.
rampant suicide problem with
No.
veterans.
What happens is
They use their guns
they
to kill themselves.
no. You just said you're saying it's not a crime once you're a veteran and you own a gun and you get on that fiduciary list.
No, what I'm saying is that having a fiduciary appointed for you does not make you a felon, and you don't get a fiduciary appointed for you because you're a felon.
That's correct.
There are
You don't
three
get
criteria.
Hold on. That's correct. You don't get a fiduciary because you're a felon. But right now
It's not the
at
only
the
criteria.
at the
It's just their
VA,
guns taken away.
the only criteria is if you get on that fiduciary list, then you get on the Brady list. You get the letter when they approve your benefits. I went through this with
Okay.
at least two people. I'll yield you some time here. Two people that work at the VA that told me this is exactly how it works. I talked to a distraught
Are you
wife
listening
who's been
to this?
battling
Are you guys hearing this?
for a couple years to try and get not just her husband, the veterans guns rights back, but just her right to have a gun in the house. And this is what happens. They don't. It's not an easy process to get off of this. And the veterans typically, as was explained to me by the people that work at the VA, I will call them whistleblowers, the veterans typically don't try to appeal. A lot of them will just try to keep their gun and stay under the radar, illegally keep their gun, because the same day they get the letter that said, we approved you moving from 50% disability to 90 or 100% disability, they get the letter. In fact, it may be in the same envelope, I'm not sure, that says, now you're on the Brady list. You will be a criminal if you have access to a firearm.
Mr. Massie, there are three criteria that are used to determine whether somebody
I'm
is
curious.
eligible
Tell us, Debbie.
to
Tell
purchase
us.
a firearm. One, you have to be a felon.
Correct.
Two, you have to be a domestic violence abuser.
What if?
And
Yeah.
three, you have to be adjudicated as mentally ill.
Oh,
And one
yes.
of the ways in which someone
Or an illegal
has
use
a
of
fiduciary
narcotics
appointed
or marijuana.
is when there is a mental illness. You don't just easily get declared that you are incapable of handling your finances and a fiduciary is appointed for you. There is generally a serious problem in which the veteran needs intervention and a fiduciary is appointed to them, which is aligned with when someone is adjudicated as mentally ill, they are not able to purchase a weapon. And the reason that is so important to make sure that we leave that in place when it comes to a veteran is so that we don't add to the veteran suicide rate and we don't add to the number of veterans that are killing
Just save one
their own
life.
family members or that are engaging in violence with firearms.
Just one
What you
life.
say can be true, that somebody who is found to be mentally ill is then assigned a fiduciary and then loses their gun rights. But it can also happen that somebody is not found to be mentally ill, that all they have is a fiduciary. They tried to do this exact same thing at the Social Security Administration, and we stopped them here in Congress, I believe with the CRA, Congressional Review Act. But we weren't able to do it at the VA. People who are not mentally ill are being put on the list of people who will be criminals if they keep their guns or try to buy a gun or even have ammunition in the house. And rather than beat a dead horse here, I'm just going to close my comments by saying this is a very needed rider, and I would hope more people would get educated on this. Talk to your veterans, talk to somebody who's lost their gun rights, who's not mentally ill, who was simply trying to get their disability because they were willing to put their life on the line for this country, and now they can't even exercise their Second Amendment. So I support that rider, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair thanks the gentleman.
I know there.
All right. What do you guys think about that? Isn't that absolutely insane? Insane in the membrane. Like, wow. Let me just gather my thoughts and we'll continue this conversation.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. I was just admiring my patch board. I'm trying to find more space. I got a couple more patches. I got the official Range Minded podcast patch and the Perry Dangerous and Unusual patch. You know, patches have been around a long time. A lot of the cool guys have them on their kit. I'm neither cool nor high speed, so I just use a patch board. That's just the way it is. If you want to get your own Range Minded podcast patch or Perry patch, they are now available. You just have to direct message me and we'll figure it all out. And maybe you'll have a lot of cool patches of your own. Anyway, there's a new home for them. Get yours today.
So unless you guys have been living under a rock, you would probably be knowing that old Hunter Biden, the cream of the crop of the Biden family, whatever. I don't know what I'm trying to say. He's special, all right? He's just special. Anyways, his gun trial's coming up, and it's probably going to be interesting to see exactly how justice is going to play out for old Hunter, old champ. What a stud. Anyway, if you don't know exactly what's going on with Hunter, a few years ago, Hunter lied on a form when he purchased a firearm. He was under the influence. I think it was cocaine or something. Pretty sure that's what it was. Anyways, so Hunter decided he wanted to buy a gun, and he was using drugs. So he goes to this dealer. I think it was in Delaware. He goes to this, did I say user? He goes to this dealer in Delaware, decides he wants to purchase a firearm. Now, when you purchase a gun from an FFL, you have to fill out a form called the 4473. I know many of you already know how this works, but there might be some that don't know. So it's a background check. You have to go through the background check. These do exist. So Hunter fills out the form, picks up the gun, fills out the form, and there's a section on Form 4473, which is a federal document. This is a big deal. You can't lie on Form 4473 or you get in trouble. So there's a section of questions on this particular document that if you answer the wrong way, I guess you could say it makes you disqualified from purchasing a firearm. It makes you what we would call a prohibited person, okay? Someone who is not eligible to own a firearm. One of those questions asks basically if you're addicted or using illegal drugs. Now, Hunter was using illegal drugs. He may not have been using them that particular day. I don't know. He might have been high. He may not have been. I wasn't there. Allegedly, Hunter filled out the form. He lied on it, said he was not an illegal user or a user of illegal substances. And the sale went through because there's no reason not to. Now, just so know, we've talked about this before. A dealer can cancel the sale at any time if he feels like there's something kind of cringy. I have done it before when I was selling guns. Twice. I've canceled the sale twice on 2 different times. Anyways, but let's just say he did answer that questionnaire, the question about using illegal substances. Answered, yeah, I'm a user. Now, if that was the case, the dealer, the firearms, the FFL holder, the firearms dealer, yeah. When I say dealer, we got to be careful because we're talking about drugs and guns, like simultaneously here. The FFL holder, if Hunter would have said, yes, I'm using drugs, that sale would have been canceled right away. The FFL holder or his agents, where do you want to call it, the employees, whoever's running the background check, would have to terminate the sale as soon as they notice that on the form. It's done. That means Hunter lied on the form, knowingly lied on the form, which is a big deal. Like I said, this is a federal document, basically a felony, right? I don't know. That's not all. That's not where it ends. Now, maybe you don't know a lot about Hunter's backstory. So when his older brother, Bo, passed away of cancer, he did not die in the military like our fearless leader says he did. He died of cancer. After his brother, Bo, passed away, Hunter decided that he really liked his sister-in-law. When I say really liked, I mean really liked his sister-in-law. They developed a relationship, kind of weird. Anyway, she saw this .38 revolver that he'd purchased. Side note, there's a picture of him floating around. I couldn't find it because I don't want to find it. He's naked holding a semi-auto. That's not the gun. It's a .38 revolver that he had purchased. His sister-in-law girlfriend, whatever you'd want to call her, noticed the gun. She was concerned that he would use it to take his own life. And so she threw it in a dumpster behind a store, which was next to a school. So there's another issue. Now, a felon, a prohibited person, according to the ATF, according to the federal government, a prohibited person lied on a document, purchased a firearm, and then that gun was thrown in a dumpster near a school. Big deal. If you or I did this, we would be facing probably 10 years. Okay? This is a major deal. So anyway, finally, after years of this coming out, Hunter they're doing jury selection right now. But because he is a darling of the left and such a wonderful, innocent young man that's never done anything wrong, some of you may have caught that one. The left is like being really weird about it. Okay, now suddenly these gun laws, that they're just, well, these crazy gun-toting lovers, these right-wing extremists. Now I can't believe they're just like going after Hunter Biden with all these laws. They just don't know what they're crazy. You don't believe me? Check this out. This is what I can't remember what this lady's name is. It's late. It's like midnight right now as I'm recording this. Check out what she had to say. This was on MSNBC. Completely ridiculous. These people are unhinged. Check this out.
And the irony here, I mean, let's step back for a minute and think about this. It's a gun charge. Now, understand that what the Republicans want to do is allow everyone to buy guns everywhere without ever having to tell the federal government anything. Right. They are so totally opposed to the idea that the federal government gets to know anything about them and their gun purchases. They don't believe in the law that he's being prosecuted under.
It's funny how the left, when they break the law, when they get caught, when it's obvious that there is a federal gun charge pending on a darling of the left or their grown-up cocaine-riddled child, that suddenly we're the crazy ones. Well, they always think we're crazy. You're right. But they don't think that we think the law should apply. What? What is she saying? Hello, psycho. Anyway, I didn't want to get too involved in this yet. It's going to get crazy. I wish there was able to have cameras in there, but obviously they're not going to let that happen. It's the president's kid, whatever. Wonderful family. Wonderful family. Anyways, let's see how Stephen Degelbooger is doing at the Mr. ATF guy in the House Judiciary. I can't say it. Let's just go to the clips. My gosh.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the ATF has a final rule. I think the comments and the rule itself accumulate to about 466 pages that define who is engaged in the business of firearms dealing. So how many firearms does someone have to sell to be engaged in the business of firearm dealing?
Congressman, as you know, that matter is being litigated in several courts. So sticking to what's already in the public record, the rule itself is 16 pages, skipping lines. And there's about, as you say, over 400 pages of explanation.
Yeah.
And so there are factors that are conduct-based, not numerical-based, but conduct-based. We received many comments. One of the comments that we received was from, I think, Senator Cornyn, who expressed the view that there was no numerical threshold. Others had a different view.
Yeah. In the House Judiciary Committee, we probably won't look to Senator Cornyn as the oracle of all things gun rights. But, so you're saying there really is no number?
I'm saying that Congress, our job is to implement the statute that Congress writes.
Yeah, no, but
Congress
just like for a regular person that one form or another acquires guns and they're trying to figure out how many of these guns do I sell before I have to register as a dealer? What you're saying is there is no bright line there.
I'm saying that there is now more information than ever in the form of that rule for specific
No, but
conduct-based.
I think just for a regular person, more information than ever is probably less helpful than if you sell 3 guns, you're not a dealer, and if you sell 4 guns, then you are a dealer, right? And this rule that you guys have drafted, it's currently enjoined, right? It has no effect.
There are 3 cases that I know of, maybe more going on now. One of the judges has issued equitable relief.
So in Texas, a judge has stopped the implementation of this law for 3 reasons. One is that there's no minimum requirement, and the court has found, this court in Texas, that you aren't just giving effect and life to Congress's statutes. You've in fact exceeded your authority, because Congress would have never allowed some sort of sliding scale where 16 pages of single-spaced whatever determines whether or not you're a firearm dealer, not how many guns you sell. There's a second reason that court in Texas said that this would not have effect, and it's that actual profit is not a requirement of the statute, only the predominant intent for profit. How do you understand that ruling?
Again, that's in litigation. The Department of Justice's positions on each and every one of these matters is public. It is laid out in many, many pages of briefing. And so I would ask people to look at our briefs that we filed in the court, and I would commend your attention
No, but
to them.
if just someone's just trying to figure out whether or not they have to get a federal license or be subject to your guys breaking their doors down and potentially killing them, you would think that you'd want that to be easily understandable. And here, even if someone isn't turning a profit, but they might want to turn a profit, they could be subject to this regulation, and the court found that troubling. And then the third reason the court identified is that your rule doesn't just give meaning to Congress's statute, but that, quote, arbitrarily eviscerates the safe harbor provision. So there's a safe harbor provision of this law that says if you're just engaged in the occasional sale or exchange or purchase of a firearm for a personal collection or a hobby, that this regulatory structure wouldn't affect you. But what the court is saying here in blocking your rule is that you have eviscerated the safe harbor that exists for the hobbyist. Do you have a reaction to that ruling?
Again, yes, our position is not that, but it's under litigation. We have filed extensive.
I know, but here
briefs
we
on
are.
this.
Make your argument. Well, I mean, they're sitting here in court trying to figure out what Congress means. What we're saying is there should definitely be a bright line in terms of guns. You shouldn't have to have this pondering question about profit motive, and you shouldn't eviscerate the safe harbor. That's what we're saying. So what's your argument as to why the safe harbor should be eviscerated?
Our argument is to look to the statute that Congress wrote. The statute that Congress wrote, and I just want to make clear that people understand this. There was an earlier comment about the word livelihood. That's not in the law anymore that Congress wrote. Congress took that out of the law. It doesn't exist anymore. So we start with the statute. That's where things always begin and end.
I know you started with the statute, but what this court is saying is that you have exceeded the statute. You've done it in a way that eviscerates the safe harbor, that blurs the lines, and that creates no discernible way for people to comply with the law. And the reason I think you guys are doing that is you want to make it more difficult for people to engage in the legal, lawful, and constitutionally contemplated manner to transfer firearms, and you're trying to criminalize an entire enterprise. And that's why you see us trying to curtail some of your funding and your authorities. I see my time's expired, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
I know we talked about this proposed rule in a few episodes before, and probably more than once. But I'm glad that Matt Gaetz represented, I'm glad that Matt Gaetz brings this up, because it needs to be clarified. It's a convoluted mess. The ATF and this proposed rule has so many pages of definitions, double space. They want this rule to be complicated. They want to be able to use it as a weapon. It is not to just funnel out the ill doers. It is meant as a catch-all, and I'm glad that Representative Gaetz brought this up and is challenging the ATF on this rule. It's important because I think, and many others think, the ATF has gone completely rogue, and this is just one more way for us to have our God-given rights, not government-granted rights, taken away from us. Now let's listen to see what Thomas Massie. I know we heard from him before, but it's time for another massacre. Check this out.
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
I thank the chairman. I'm troubled here by your new rule defining what a firearms dealer is or engaged in the business of selling firearms. Isn't the purpose of it, or won't the result be that more people will be defined as being engaged in the business of selling firearms?
The purpose of the rule is to effectuate Congress's definition. Congress expanded the definition 2 years ago in the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act.
What's the result going to be?
The result is going to be, I hope, increased compliance with Congress's statute.
The result is going to be subjecting more American citizens to the treatment that Mr. Malinowski unfortunately received from our federal government, which is you want to get more warrants to serve these no-knock raids on people who have not been convicted of anything, yet may be convicted on their doorstep to death. I want to address something in your rule here. I did find one thing that I think is sort of helpful, and I hope the other side of the aisle will read this. I want to give you time to look at this. The department, that would be the ATF, correct, in your rule?
I don't know what is this from the?
Yeah, this is from
the
your rule.
The department refers to the Department of Justice.
Okay. The department also notes that the term gun show loophole is a misnomer in that there is no statutory exemption under the Gun Control Act for unlicensed persons to engage in the business of dealing in firearms at a gun show or at any other venue. I hope the other side of the aisle, this is the one useful thing that I found in 16-page rule and hundreds of pages of explanation, is to show people that there is no gun show loophole. Do you agree with the department and with your own rule here?
I agree that Congress never said, and has never said, and hasn't said now, didn't say before this, that somebody who is engaged in the business, those are the words there, can do that without a license depending on where they sit. But people have encouraged the perception, and we have seen an increased level of non-compliance among people who are either intentionally or otherwise breaking Congress's statute.
The only people encouraging this perception is the left side of the aisle and the media. There is no gun show loophole, and I'm glad you finally admitted that. Now I want to get to something else.
I've said that publicly, and there never was.
Okay, thank you. I want to get to something else in your opening statement, and maybe you want to read it back if it's written down. Can you tell me the fact that you were expressing or claimed that there are more that firearms are leading cause of death for children? What were your specific words in your testimony?
I'd have to look at my testimony.
Can you look at it?
I think it's children and youth, and it's in my longer statement that's in the record. Obviously, I'm summarizing a statement as the chair asked me to do. So it's in my longer statement, which has been entered into the record. I don't have it in front of me.
Can you define a child and youth?
There's child and youth. There's a statistical study that is the source of that, and we can get that to you. I don't know the specific site sitting here. We'll be glad to get that to you.
Yeah, the statistical study, according to news reports and Snopes, as Mr. Nails referred to, excludes infants under the age of 1 and includes 18 and 19-year-olds. Is that true?
I don't know. I mean, honestly.
You don't know your own statistic?
No, I don't know. Honestly,
why
isn't
would that
any
be your
killing of
testimony to
children
Congress?
Unacceptable?
Any killing of any person is unacceptable, except in self-defense. Are you including if a 17 or 18 or 19-year-old gang member came to a person's door and tried to attack them, that was self-defense? Are you including that in your statistic?
Congressman, firearms violence is a huge.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to let you make your public service statement. I want you to defend your sworn testimony. Are you claiming that 18 and 19-year-olds are children in your statistic?
And again, you have my statement.
Yeah, I have it. I'm asking you to explain it. Here's my other question. How many 18-year-olds who've committed a gun crime have you suggested be prosecuted as a minor?
We are a law enforcement agency. We're not the prosecutors.
Okay.
And in the federal system,
How many have you served? How many have
federal
you
system
gone after? Okay.
The federal, Respectfully,
18-year-olds.
we investigate crimes shoulder to shoulder with local law
Okay.
enforcement.
Are
and if they
18-year-olds
pro-
children or are they adults?
Each state has its own
Under the gun
rules as
laws.
to when juveniles are prosecuted.
Federal gun
Federal
laws.
laws, as you may know, federal laws with respect to the prosecution of juveniles are exceedingly difficult. And you are correct that prosecution of juveniles, if you're implying this as adults, is rare in the federal system.
Here's the reality.
And
This is-
juvenile crime,
reclaiming my
juvenile
time.
crime is an increasing problem.
Laws, the gentleman from California.
Reclaiming my time. Look, you're including in your statistic, whether you know it or not, 18 and 19-year-olds, but you would never claim that those are minors in the context of gun prosecutions. And the only way you can get the number of deaths attributable to firearms above other causes is by excluding under the age of 1 and including 18 and 19-year-olds, particularly gang members, and including self-defense. So with that, I yield back.
First of all, I'm going to go to the end of it. First of all, the end, right? Can't define what a child. Well, I think there's some reports out there. Well, Congress had to shut up. Shut up. You're a moron. How did you get this job? Whose ass did you kiss that long to get where you are today? You are such a worm. And I love that Massie said, hey, look, you guys said the gun show loophole does not exist. And I've said that before. I've said it publicly and it's in my record. Good, because you're an idiot. You're dumb. We've established that. We established that you are a yes man and you are in charge of an agency only. Your only purpose in charge of this agency is to infringe. That's it. Not to be smart. Not to propose intellectual, life-saving rules, but to propose infringements upon the American public. You're a moron. And I stand by that statement. Might get me in trouble. I don't care. Dettelbach, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. Let's jump to I gotta look up her name because I keep forgetting. This lady's awesome. Victoria Spartz. She is from she was born in the Ukraine. She's actually just a few days older than me. So that means that she lived under the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union. She was born in Ukraine in the 70s. This lady should probably understand what it's like when a government overreaches. Check this out. She's awesome. She's a little spicy. Sometimes she's a little hard to understand, but listen to her. Do your best, because she is not having Dettelbach's BS. Check this out.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you. Director Dittelbach, I wanted to follow up on something that Representative Massie was asking you about January 6th pipe bomb investigations. It's over 3 years since it happened. What are you still investigating?
We are not the lead investigative agency. It's the FBI. My understanding is from public really reported there's been over 1,000 interviews conducted. They're investigating the incident.
But it seems like it's like you have a roadmap, an FBI, not to answer questions. Everyone came here, and every question we ask, everything under investigation. It's very clever. You guys brilliant not to answer Congress, because everything under investigation, and then when investigation ends, statute of limitation and over, no one gets punished, and you continue with this. And this has happened all the time. It seems like your agency should do better than that, investigate something over 3 years. It seems like you should get to some conclusion. But my question is related to these changes under your rule and definition, what is engage in business rule. Do you think criminals that want to do something criminal are going to read your 500 pages of definitions? Are they going to read your 500 pages of definition explanations?
I think that, I don't know who will read it, but
do you think criminals will be doing that?
I think that it will also encourage, as I said at the beginning, hopefully increase compliance with the law among people who
so
perhaps...
you understand that criminals are not going to be reading this, okay? But what is it going to do to law-abiding citizen like Brian Malinowski that potentially was just doing, selling these guns, and I don't know the whole circumstances, but he's dead because he was not probably realizing what you were doing in changes of this rule. So my question is for you is going to be, do you understand how dangerous your definitions have become?
Respectfully, our definitions are based upon the
Do you
law that
understand that-
Congress passed, and it is based upon
Your
our observation and experience in the field.
Interpretation. So let's just go to
No.
your definitions. As a normal American,
It's based
I
upon-
understand your
it's
definition.
implementation. It's implementing Congress's law.
Okay, how are you going to implement? I want to understand. I am a gun owner, and I'm going to decide occasionally, say, guys, occasionally I can do maybe 100 times, maybe 5 times. You know what? I am not engaged predominantly a profit. You know, that I don't even have time to do a profit. So at which point, as a regular American citizen, so I understand that you are not going to show up, cut off my electricity, show up to my house, and try to storm the house with a bunch of people that you don't even realize what's going on. So I can be in a situation like a lot of other Americans that don't even realize that now you're redefining who the dealer is. So I want to get understanding, summarizing, understanding how I can explain to my constituent what it means now and how I am predominantly earn a profit in this. What is really the definition of that?
The statute that Congress passed says that if you're engaged in the business of dealing firearms, quote, predominantly for profit, right, that requires a license. There are some exceptions then that Congress has passed, and respectfully, people may not read the statutes either. They should, though, if they're selling firearms. These aren't possessors. These are people who are reselling firearms repetitively for profit. And I don't think it's too much to ask for somebody who is selling firearms repetitively for profit.
So what is
to read
repetitively
the law.
means? What is occasional repetitively? If I decide, you know, I have lots of guns and I decided to, you know, I want to replace with something else. I have 50 guns I'm going to sell this year. You just decide that I'm for profit. I don't know, maybe they will be for profit. Definitely no one, you know, was going to sell it at a loss, right? And with your rules, probably prices are keep increasing. So like, I'm going to become a dealer now? I have to be registered in that?
Again, I've tried to explain, and I'll
No, I'm
continue
trying to explain. So what do you do? What is really going to be now your new definitions? Because it's so broad.
It's not a new definition. It implements Congress's definition. Congress changed the
Yes,
definition.
and you put 500
Congress-
pages of explanation. So can you
it's a-
summarize
it's
it
a-
normal, plain language an American can understand?
I believe that our positions are, they're not secret, they're in
Yeah, but
court, they're
explain
filed.
without reading 500
The
pages
rule-
that are
The
confusing.
rule seeks, by providing practical, conduct-based things that normal people could,
Yes,
for instance,
please explain.
one of the things that can result in people, depending on all the circumstances, is you take credit cards for payment. That could be one of the signs that somebody's in business. One of the things that
Like,
might
so
be
if
on
I
the
use a
other
little
side.
app and then I
one of
sell
the
a gun
things-
and take a credit card and potentially will be a dealer?
One of the things that might be on the other side is if you're occasionally dealing or gifting to family members, right? We try to say things on
My
both
time
sides.
has expired, but I'll tell you, you put American lives in danger and your ATF life agent in danger by doing this, because you doing gun control. It is a very clever way to make everyone in dealer have a zero tolerance and exercise gun control and Second Amendment rights. But you put your people in danger and American people. I yield back.
Now, I want you to listen to what Harriet Hageman, hey, I don't know how to say her last name, the representative, the House rep from Wyoming. This is pretty interesting. And I think a lot of people have concerns about what the ATF is doing as far as searchable records. Check this out.
From Wyoming is recognized.
A December 2021 ATF memo alerted the American people that the ATF was maintaining a digital, searchable, centralized registry of guns and gun owners in violation of various federal prohibitions and contrary to what you testified to under oath today. In response, Representative Michael Cloud and 52 House members sent the ATF a letter dated November 22nd, 2021. ATF responded to that letter stating that it had 920,664,765 records, 865,787 and 86,000 of which are in a digitalized format, which Gun Owners of America has proved to be searchable. This was discovered shortly after ATF was revealed to have processed over 54 million records in a single year. What is the latest record count for ATF's illegal digital searchable National Gun Registry?
Zero. We obey the law.
According
We do
to
not,
your letter,
none of our
according to
records.
your letter, you have over 865 millions of these records are in digitalized format. You have admitted it.
Respectfully, I think ATF is the only customer of Adobe Acrobat that
Well,
pays
let's
money
get
to
into that.
remove search function.
Before the
to rem-
Commerce Justice Science Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee in April of last year, you testified that ATF pays Adobe Acrobat Extra to have certain search functionality eliminated.
That's not correct.
Well, is ATF's digital database of gun owner records capable of being opened by normal Adobe Acrobat and searched by name?
Again,
It's a yes or no question. Is it?
We pay to have search function eliminated. We don't pay Adobe Acrobat, I believe. We pay somebody else. But
If ATF asked, could Adobe Acrobat re-enable name search functionality on ATF's illegal gun registry?
it is not an illegal registry. We do not
If
search
ATF
by. We do
asked-
not search by. We do not search in the method that you're suggesting, and we cannot. And these are records that we pay a public safety cost, which Congress to
ATF
balance for this
asked-
decision.
If
which is
ATF asked, could Adobe Acrobat re-enable name search functionality on ATF's illegal gun registry?
I'm not an expert in Adobe Acrobat coding. I do know that we do not keep a gun registry. I also
You have
know
records.
that
You have admitted that you have over 920 million records, over 865 million of which are in digitalized format, correct?
the question, if your answer is, are they somehow scanned in so that we literally don't have to have 950 million pieces of paper, that is a lot different from what you're implying with respect to having a gun registry. It is also true, Congressman, that we don't have any records of firearms purchases
Let me ask
for
this
people
question.
who are still in business, which is the vast majority of currently
You
sold
also-
firearms. We have zero.
You also testified before that subcommittee that ATF's digital database of gun and gun owners is not capable of being searched by personal identifier. Can ATF's gun registry be searched by make, model, and serial number, enough searchability to create a list of, say, all AR-15 owners?
The answer to your question is we do not use, search,
You're not
get
answering my
around the
question.
registry.
You're not answering my question.
Your question respectfully, it was a technical question with 5 or 6 different parts.
Can
I'm
the
trying not to
registry be
erroneously, as you said, I'm under oath, I'm trying not to erroneously misstate things of technical nature. We do not keep a registry. We use these things for pending homicide investigations. It takes us a lot longer to find the name of the killer.
Mr. Dettelbach.
Now, I don't know if you guys think it's important, but I am so glad that she brought this up. The ATF consistently says that they are not keeping a database of our records, yet they have digitized, like she said, 900 million transactions? That's more than one, right? That's a lot. But it's funny because the ATF consistently says, well, it's unsearchable, blah, blah, blah. Yet, she just mentioned that, I can't remember, I forgot who it was. One of the firearms rights groups proved that it was searchable. It's like an Excel program. Like, how hard would it be just to type in whatever they're looking for? It is searchable. That's the problem. And they skirt their little buttholes around it to try and avoid answering the questions. And they'll say, well, we can't do it. It's not searchable. I call BS on it too, just like she does. It is a searchable database, allegedly, right? Come on, you guys got to open your eyes. So frustrating. Anyway, I want you to check out my man. Like, I wish this dude was my rep. I've got some good ones in Idaho, right? We got some mediocre ones, but man, do you guys know who Wesley Hunt is? Man, this dude is a stallion. Not only does he dress to the nines, like he's always looks top notch, but he's a veteran. He's a stud. He doesn't take any BS from anybody. You can tell by looking at him. And I love how he dresses down Dettelbach in this one. He's, anyways, check this out. he brings up red flag laws, which is perfect for him to bring up where he's a veteran, right? Because it seems like red flag laws are used predominantly against veterans, but it wouldn't be necessarily. Anyways, check out Wes on this interaction here.
Back, gentleman from Texas, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're almost done, sir. Thank you for being here for a second time. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Basic question, sir. You're an attorney, correct? That's my understanding.
Yes, I am, sir.
So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, knowing that you understand the Constitution, including our Bill of Rights, correct?
I hope so, sir.
So what is your interpretation of our Second Amendment? Do you think that Americans have the right to bear arms? Yes or no? And just give me your brief overall view of it.
Yes, and I think what we do is we look to what the Supreme Court has decided on this. The Supreme Court, Congressman, has been very clear on this. The law is, the Second Amendment jurisprudence is lengthy and changing, but as a lawyer, I don't get to decide that. The courts decide it, and the courts have said yes, is the answer to your question.
Okay, so we have these Second Amendment rights because we know how important it is for us to maintain our constitutional republic and a functioning republic because, again, as a gun owner myself, as a lawful gun owner myself, it's very important to me to be able to protect my home and also prevent tyrannical governments from infringing on our rights as human beings bestowed to us in our Constitution. So it's my humble opinion, sir, that the ATF is certainly infringing on a lot of these rules for law-abiding citizens and infringing on our Second Amendment rights for law-abiding citizens. I'm not talking about trying to catch the bad guys that have guns. I am talking about implementing a level of pain on people like me that, quite frankly, was not bestowed to us via the Second Amendment. Unfortunately, as bureaucrats are attempting to infringe on the Second Amendment rights, that some lawmakers in Congress, they see gun owner tragedies as an opportunity to slowly chip away at these rights. So recently, lawmakers used a heartbreaking Uvalde tragedy as an opportunity to pass red flag legislation. This is a fact. I remember a time when we were told that red flag laws were simply a conspiracy theory. I'm old enough to remember that. And they are not a conspiracy theory anymore, sir. Red flag laws are in bills and they are in Biden's executive orders. If you don't know what red flags are, in short, red flag laws are a type of pre-crime enforcement where courts grant orders allowing for the seizure of firearms from someone who hasn't committed an actual crime. When I think of red flag laws, I see the Safer Communities Act, which President Biden signed into law in 2022. The Safer Communities Act included $750 million in funding for states to implement and improve red flag laws. Again, that's going after the good guys, not the bad guys. But it had to stop there. It has not stopped there, sir. Biden in 2023 announced an executive order on gun control with the goal of, quote, increasing the effective use of red flag laws. Biden also opened the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, led by Kamala Harris, which has further encouraged and entrenched red flag laws across the nation. These are all facts. I'm still waiting for her to tell us what the root causes are of the border crisis, and you're going to try to tell me that Kamala Harris is going to tell us the root causes of gun violence. Good luck with that. Finally, the ATF has expanded upon the Safer Communities Act by issuing a new ruling that in practice will implement universal background checks. I'm going to say quiet part out loud because we're almost done. Whenever a gun tragedy occurs in this country, we always hear the left say, we have to do something. We have to do more. And then once legislation is passed, my colleagues on the left then say, we have to always do more and more and more and more. I'm going to warn the American people that we have to do more. What we have to do more really, really means. First, they come after AR-15s. Then they come after your sporting rifles. Then they come after your long guns. And then when homicides have not decreased because you take away all of those weapons, and keep in mind the AR-15 is responsible for 6% of homicides in this country, they're going to come after your handguns and disarm our country and disarm our rights and take away our Second Amendment rights that have been given to us by our founding fathers. And rather than take away guns from law-abiding citizens, instead, we should be going after criminals, specifically criminals. The reason why I'm talking about red flag laws is because the American public understands that we're going to start having mission creep here. You go after one thing, you go after another thing, and then there's always more. There's always going to be a fight. And we're using tragedies to infringe on rights that have been given to us by our Second Amendment. And as you, being the head of the ATF, I need you to be cognizant and very aware of that. Because most of the people in Texas that are ranch owners, AR-15 owners like myself, combat veterans like myself, we don't need more laws. We'd implement the laws that we have on the books and go after the bad guys that have guns, not the good guys. And that's your job. Thank you so much for being here, sir. And I yield back the rest of my time.
Gentleman yields back.
Boom. I'm telling you, that dude is a stud. We need to just like duplicate Wesley Hunt and like put him in every state. Anyway, I think it's awesome. But why did I want you guys to see what I showed you? That is probably the question you really should be asking me. Why? Why would you show me this stuff, Steve? This is why. You're going to have all sorts of people like telling you what their interpretation of these hearings are. I do that too at times. I get it, especially when I read some of these boring bills. I get it. The reason why I want you guys to see this stuff, like straight from the horse's mouth, is you need to see who's doing the job that they're hired to do, right? What representatives are actually doing the representation that they should be doing, and who's actually fighting for us. Now, I know some of these people don't live in the states that we live in. None of these representatives are from my state. It is what it is. But it doesn't mean we can't support the ones that are doing the right thing. What we do need to be doing, if our state representation is not doing what we think they should be doing, then why aren't we on the phone with them? Why aren't we vocalizing our concerns? That's where you guys come in. That's why you need to hear this stuff. You need to see who's doing it and who's not doing it. Now, I know I could have shown some opposition, some of the left, like sharing their perspective on things. I get it. The reason basically why I didn't is this was almost 4 hours long. I don't think you guys wanted to listen to 4 hours of this. I did. And there's a reason why I clipped it down to whatever, an hour. Actually, it's less than that because we had some other stuff before. Whatever. It's super boring. But there's stuff in there that I wanted you guys to hear. Don't take my word for anything, okay? Look the stuff up for yourself. Understand these things on your own. Build your own knowledge base on this stuff. It's important, okay? It's important. We're losing our gun rights. I seriously have a feeling that 2024, the rest of this year, is going to be tough, especially after the election, okay? I heard something the other day. I wasn't going to share this, but it just popped up. If you follow me on Twitter, by the way, at RangeMinded on X or Twitter, whatever, you would have seen something I said about buying ammunition. Why do I suggest buying ammunition? Well, there are some main components of the cartridge that you buy, okay? Lead is getting harder to produce in the United States. The EPA's cracking down on lead mines. It's a hazardous metal, right? It's getting more and more difficult. Now there's manufacturers that are working on non-lead projectiles, which is great, but that research is still expensive. Those products are still expensive. It takes some work to make lead-free projectiles. So there's the first problem, okay? Brass is not too hard to find. If you're like me, you got a lot of brass laying around the house anyways. So that's a little less concern. But what is the concern is, I forgot the name of the stuff that's one of the components of the powder, the smokeless powder, is made overseas. That's a big concern. I think it's made in China. It's not cordite. I can't remember the name of it. I was just going to, when I thought about telling you, that's when the name popped out of my head. But what's been going on recently in the Ukraine and other places, the United States has volunteered a lot of our munitions for these overseas fights that we're, as far as hot, we're not involved in. Now, we've had a huge munition storage facility that a lot of these munitions that we're sending overseas is just like kind of a stockpile, right? Well, that stuff is gone. And now we have to reproduce the stuff that we've given away. Now, military and police, well, let's just say this, government gets priority on this kind of stuff. Look at the FBI budget when it comes to ammunition. The government gets priority. The citizens get pushed to the back of the bus. Maybe that wasn't the best term. Anyway, we have to refill our munitions depots. That means a huge portion of powder and projectiles are going to the government. What does that mean for us, the civilian people, right? The regular consumer? It means ammunition is going to get very expensive. It means it's going to be very difficult to buy. I'm not telling you to. I don't make money off telling you guys this. Okay, this isn't how I make my money. Okay, I honestly don't make any money on the podcast, but that could change with your donation. Ding. It's gonna get expensive, so I would highly suggest finding a way to purchase a box a week, or if you have the means, maybe a little bit more or whatever. If you like to hunt, might be a good time to pick up the necessary goods for hunting. If you reload, you're already starting to feel the pinch on this stuff. It's gonna get difficult. I just feel it in my guts. Okay, so it's probably a good time to load up on ammo. I wasn't gonna tell you that story, but surprise, here we are. I told you that story anyways. So what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, it's like after midnight, by the way. It was when I first started recording this. It was Killdozer Day, right? Niemeyer in Danby, Colorado, with the Killdozer thing. You know what's funny is the only one that died in that whole incident was Mr. Heemeyer. Nobody else was killed, but yet it's anyway. I suggest learning his story. I don't want you guys to just willy-nilly jump on the bandwagon just because he had to fight against the town. He just had enough. I mean, there's a lot more to that story. You can watch the movie, the docu-movie. It's okay. But there's some other stuff floating around online. It's kind of cool to learn a little bit more about what really happened in that guy's life. Anyway, so it's Killdozer Day. So happy Killdozer Day. So if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, there's more of it to be heard. So I think we've talked about this before. Actually, I know we've talked about this before, but some friends have gotten together. All of us kind of got together and created, I guess you could call it a network. It's not really, it's called We the People Live. So you can find it on X, YouTube. You've probably seen some of the lives I've thrown up on YouTube. That's all part of the We the People group. It's a bunch of like-minded individuals, not necessarily just 2A, but just freedom-loving citizens of the United States. So sometimes we get into some I want to say arguments, disagreements, because we want to have conversations about things. We want to be challenged in our views. That's how we grow together. That's how we become or maintain our freedom. So check that out. You can find us on We the People Live. Like I said, usually on X. Check that out there. My podcast, the Range Minded Podcast, it airs every day now on We the People Live Network. So kind of awesome. GunCon is coming up as well. I'm just kind of throw all this stuff in here at once. I know this podcast has gone a little bit longer than what most people like to hear, so I'm trying to keep it quicker on the end of this. GunCon's coming up. It is the end of June, which is this month, at Granville, Iowa. That's Brownell's World Headquarters. I think tickets are sold out. So if you haven't bought your tickets yet, sorry. But I'm taking you with me. Anyways, we're going to do some live broadcasts. We're going to hang out. If you happen to be driving by, I bet there's still a way that you can say hi. It is what it is. Anyways, come see us at GunCon. That is the June 29th. So, man, it's going to come quicker than you think. Can you believe it's already June? It is halfway through the year. Holy smokes. Anyway, you can also find me on the website, rangemindedpodcast.com. There you can find some other social links. If you want to contribute to the show, which would be greatly appreciated, there's a way to do that through Spotify. I believe I still have that set up there. Otherwise, I have a Patreon, which is linked on my link tree, and I think it's on the website, but it might not be. But you can find the link tree on Instagram. I need to probably figure out how to put this all in one spot so you don't have to jump all over the place, whatever. Also, if you haven't heard yet, if you didn't see the ad earlier in the video, there are patches available. So if you're interested in a patch, you can DM me on any of the social platforms, whether it be X, like I said, at RangeMinded, or RangeMinded Podcast on Facebook or Twitter or TikTok, actually, which has been kind of a struggle. TikTok kind of sucks sometimes. Anyways, I appreciate you guys for hanging out this long. I know this was a little bit longer of an episode, but I hope, man, it's late. Like I said, I'm kind of tired. I hope you got something out of this episode to help you kind of open your eyes and see what is trying to be pushed upon us as citizens, especially you vets. I hope you dig into that. That's craziness. Anyways, guys, I really appreciate you hanging out. It means a lot to me. Anyways, I hope to get in touch with you guys soon. Be safe. Be good. And don't forget, you got to take somebody shooting. See you guys.